This is the Film Symbologist, and in this video I'll take a look at the character of David from Ridley Scott's 2012 science fiction film Prometheus. This video is part of an ongoing series exploring the meaning of the film, so if you haven't seen the other videos in the series, I suggest checking those out on my channel. Previous videos have discussed whether or not the engineers changed their minds about humanity, the purpose of the so-called star maps, the reliability of the characters, the symbolism of the orrery, and the engineer's language. Prometheus is a mysterious movie with much of the story occurring beneath the surface of what is shown on screen. To decipher the meaning of the film requires a deeper dive into historical, religious, mythological, and cultural references that are made throughout the movie. David is one of the film's central characters. He plays a pivotal role in the story, and Peter Weyland, as David's creator, must be understood as well in order to make sense of what is happening in the story and to uncover its meaning. This video will discuss the motivations of these two characters, their relationship, and what can be inferred about how the film's events unfold around them. In a previous video, I argued that the audience viewing the film needs to make its own decisions about what is going on with the plot, since the film's characters are not reliable narrators, and the audience knows more than the characters. This is true of pretty much every character except for David, who is able to comprehend the engineer's written and spoken language, interact with their technology, and even communicate with them directly. While David seems to share some of the information he's learned about the engineers with Weyland and Shaw, it can be assumed that much of what David has learned remains unknown to the audience. As a result, we must turn to what we do know about David if we want to gain any insight into what is happening. In the lead up to the release of Prometheus in theaters in 2012, a series of short-form media clips were posted online to help market the film. One of these clips depicts Peter Weyland giving a TED Talk in the year 2023, roughly 70 years prior to the Weyland Corporation's expedition to LV-223. In the clip, the founder of the Weyland Corporation references a 20th century film.
T.E. Lawrence, eponymously of Arabia, but very much an Englishman, favored pinching a burning match between his fingers to put it out. When asked by his colleague, William Potter, to reveal his trick, how is it he so effectively extinguished the flame without hurting himself whatsoever, Lawrence just smiled and said, "The trick, Potter, is not minding it hurts."
The film referenced by Weyland is Lawrence of Arabia. Upon its release in 1962, the historical epic, directed by David Lean, received acclaim from audiences and critics alike. The film is based on an autobiography written by T.E. Lawrence entitled The Seven Pillars of Wisdom, which was published in the 1920s. The title of the book is a reference to the book of Proverbs from the Bible. The film, along with the book it is based on, recounts Lawrence's experiences as a member of the British Army stationed in Arabia during World War I. The film Lawrence of Arabia opens in 1935 with the titular character at age 46 riding his motorcycle quickly along the back roads in rural England. The thrill of careening around corners shifts into panic in an instant for Lawrence when he suddenly loses control of the bike, causing him to crash, which kills him. The film then cuts back to Lawrence serving in the British Army during World War I. Played by Peter O'Toole in the film, Lawrence is portrayed as yearning for adventure, purpose, and agency over his own destiny. He feels that he doesn't fit in with the army or the people he serves with. When he gets presented with the opportunity to venture out into the Arabian desert, he enthusiastically embarks into the unknown, where he thinks he may find what he is looking for. Out in the harsh environment, Lawrence encounters native Arabians who are perplexed as to what Westerners are hoping to achieve by coming to the desert.
No Arab loves the desert. We love water and green trees. There's nothing in the desert. No man needs nothing.
While Lawrence faces many hardships during his time out in the desert, he also finds adventure, purpose, and self-identity. For Lawrence, the desert represents freedom, challenge, and an opportunity to craft his own destiny away from the constraints of the British military. His journey becomes a personal quest for self-discovery and an escape from the expectations imposed upon him by his superiors. Out in the desert, unlike anywhere else, Lawrence is able to pursue a purpose that aligns more with his personal ideals than with those of the British military establishment. Lawrence's growing identification with the Arab cause in the conflict further bolsters his resolve to explore the desert despite the intense hardships that test him. His experiences profoundly change him. Upon his return to England after the war, it can be reasoned that Lawrence's desire for adventure remains as a driving force in his life. Perhaps his backroads motorcycle riding is an expression of this. And in addition to the viral clip of Peter Weyland's TED Talk, there are several more references to Lawrence of Arabia in the theatrical cut of Ridley Scott's Prometheus.
You do that once too often. It's only flesh and blood.
Michael George Hartley, you're a philosopher.
And you're balmy. Oh! It damn well hurts.
Certainly it hurts.
Well, what's the trick then?
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
There is nothing in the desert, and no man needs nothing. Big things have small beginnings.
That precious screen time is devoted to showing clips of the 1962 film, and that the movie studio paid for the rights to use those clips underscores just how important Lawrence of Arabia is to understanding Prometheus, especially the character of David. And the audience can infer that David's interest in Lawrence of Arabia was inherited in some way from his creator. Weyland's affinity for the story of T.E. Lawrence may explain his own ventures out into the Martian desert, where his company's terraforming operation is shown in the background of his recorded message to the Prometheus crew. Weyland, like Lawrence, is likely seeking adventure, purpose, and identity out in the rugged landscapes of the Red Planet. But Weyland's experience on Mars doesn't seem to be enough for the aging billionaire, so he seeks to embark on another adventure farther out into space to LV-223. And separate from Weyland, there are plenty of reasons for David to find his own kinship with T.E. Lawrence. Just as Lawrence didn't fit in with the British Army, David doesn't fit in with the crew of the Prometheus. Like Lawrence, David teaches himself a trick, but rather than not minding that putting out a flame with one's fingers hurts, David seems to learn the trick of not minding that extinguishing his own ambitions and serving inferior beings hurts. The expedition to LV-223 requires David to obey his programming and carry out his duties, but the trip also offers an opportunity for self-discovery, personal fulfillment, and escape from the expectations of his creators. David's dual loyalties are on display throughout the film. As the only one who can understand the engineer's language, David is able to read the hieroglyphics, understand the conversations the engineers are having with one another in the recordings, and even speak to one of them. The audience can infer that David has attained a great deal of information about the engineers, their beliefs, their plans, and their purpose on LV-223. Early on in the film, however, David seems disappointed with the engineers.
Mortal after all.
As the story progresses and David learns more about them, he seems to be impressed by the engineers and perhaps even sympathetic to their cause. just as Lawrence began to identify with the Arab cause during World War I. And what is the engineers' cause? LV-223 is an inhospitable world that must be terraformed for it to be habitable. Did LV-223 at one time have an ideal atmosphere, but the engineers destroyed it? Or has it always had a harsh environment? In any case, the engineer who was awoken by David seems perplexed as to why humans have traveled to LV-223, similar to how the native Arabians were puzzled by what Westerners hoped to achieve by coming to the desert. Did the engineers want to use the black goo to wipe out Earth's current inhabitants so that the engineers could colonize our highly habitable planet for themselves? Wiping out humans would certainly achieve David's goal of liberation.
That being said, doesn't everyone want their parents dead?
And what does the film Prometheus present as being the outcome of seeking purpose to one's life in deserts like LV-223? The engineers seem to have faced a similar fate of near total annihilation as the crew of the Prometheus. Weyland is mortally wounded and dying when he concludes that LV-223 is a desert where there is nothing to be found. David, whose brief moment in the limelight is cut short by his decapitation, concurs with Weyland's conclusion that there is nothing.
There's nothing. I know.
But as knowledgeable as David may be about the engineers on LV-223, he, like the other members of the Prometheus crew, is not aware of the film's opening scene at the waterfall, and for that reason, his proclamations, as insightful as they may be, are still limited in an important way. We have to dig deeper if we are going to get our answers. As for David, when he and Shaw embark on another journey at the end of the film, he is presented with another opportunity for his liberation. In a future video, I hope to continue exploring the relationship between the so-called engineers, Weyland, and David, and how the xenomorphs fit in. As always, if you enjoy content like this and would like to see more, leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the Film Symbologist channel. Thanks for watching.